People Living, People Speaking is this year's theme of the Flying Fox Festival. People Living, People Speaking is about recognising that the people that live in Katherine have a story to tell. We have a voice and we have the ability to share our story in really beautiful, artistic and creative ways. We needed to reinforce the focus on the art and cultural aspect of the festival, and also to really generate input from the community in a way that's interesting, meaningful and contributes to the community's sense of self, that utilise the stories of people that was really based and entrenched in their cultural background, however far back that background goes. And I really wanted those stories to be the sort of centrepiece of our presentation, particularly to recognise and celebrate our cultural depth, our cultural diversity, and what that actually brings to the Katherine community.
Well, I think I finally made it in Katherine town. I this year won Most Outstanding Exhibit for Cookery in the Katherine show. It's only taken me 3 years of entering in the Katherine show to finally achieve that, I don't know, coveted prize. And that was a great achievement, I think. To be up there with all the Katherine stalwarts, the women who have been living in this town for such a long time, and I've only been here for a moment really, compared to some of the women that have been here for all of their lives almost.
The soft drink aerated waters, Katherine Scott's aerated waters was situated just about where Make It is now, is on 2 blocks. It was just an old tin shed left over from the war, and it was for a cookhouse apparently, and my grandmother brought it off Charles Reuben Williams, and she used to have lots of different flavours, horehound, ginger beer, soda water, sarsaparilla, raspberry, banana, pineapple. My favourite was always sarsaparilla, as a kid would love. It always reminded me a little bit of green ants. Crushed green ants was a very strong smell around that area. Especially in the syrup room when my grandmother used to mix the waters and the flavours and the syrups, and then they used to go out to be bottled. And Glad Forsket was her off-cider for many years, and they were really good mates. They often used to have a lot of community events like race day. They used to have their whole little, I suppose, social gatherings for the whole town at the factory. It was the only lolly water factory in the whole of the territory at the time. There was one at Tennant Creek apparently, but my grandmother's was very successful. Later on she sold it to James Forsket, who was later to become our local mayor.
When we were kids growing up in Katherine, that's kids meaning about 4 or 5 brothers and myself. And anyway, one day we decided to steal this little iron canoe, little old tin canoe, and we were going to go from the high level down to the low level bridge. And anyway, it was all stuck together with tar and what have you, and there was only about, say, probably 200 people in Katherine at that particular time, and the local policeman didn't have too much to do. He was noted for never having arrested anybody. But anyway, we were leaving home for some reason or other. I was about 11, and we packed all our gear in the end anyway, because we sank about 5 times on the way down to the Lowy, and everyone thought, oh, some giant salty was going to come and... Anyway, so when we got down the Lowy, there was Jim Mannion, the policeman. He was just waiting there in the police van.
I love the space that Katherine has. There's a real people let you be who you want to be here, and everyone's down to earth. It's very welcoming. It's very friendly. It's the people that make this place.
Going down the river every afternoon and playing with 20 kids from around 3 or 4 streets. Just basically we're at the river whenever you were able to, you know, when it was warm enough. You were at the river or playing cricket on Riverbank Drive in the dirt out front of Baldy Morris's place with the Morris boys and the Connops and the Peckhams and the Roseses, all of those families were all. It was just, I don't know. I barely remember going to school really. It was good. Having been here so long, you have all those contacts, and you can probably do more. I can do more for my family from staying here than say moving to Brisbane or moving out of the Katherine region, I suppose, because you're a local, everyone knows you, and it makes it business easy and makes everything easier really. Dad, when I was a kid, he was so flat out that we didn't see him that often, but there's a few occasions where he'd take a week off and we'd go on a canoe trip, like from Katherine, from the low level down to Ulu Crossing or something like that, and they're all the memories that you have of. Most of the time though, he was at work doing his bit for for himself and for the community, I suppose. Jim was he was the doctor here in town. He started the first surgery, well the only surgery, well it's not the first, now they got whirly, but and he was the doctor, dentist, vet, sort of did everything, yeah. So I remember Alf Faulkner sewing the front of the German Shepherd's nose back on that had been hit by a propeller, and he'd done all sorts of things, and he'd have his own little dental bag so that he could clean people's teeth or pull a tooth out, whatever. So yeah, he did everything really back in the early days, and he was pretty dedicated to it. So he was probably doing anywhere between 12 and 18 hours a day, sort of thing. So normally when you're a child, you're tucked away in bed when Dad came home, so it wasn't very often that you actually saw him. So. Here we've got so much space, and we're on the riverbank, so that's all positive. And I definitely couldn't live in the city. I still get confused with autumn, winter, summer and spring, and I always get them all jumbled up. It's still just the wet season and the dry season, so I'll never. That's probably not something to be proud of, but anyway, I prefer the wet season to the dry. The people that don't want to be here generally go in the wet season, and all the stayers stay. So, yeah, that's it. Ben the plumber. There we go.
My name is Ale Lungo. I'm Samoan. I arrived in Katherine in the year 2000. My wife and I, with 2 girls, worked in Lataman for a couple of years. This is our shopping center. In Katherine, we decided to bring our children to school since they've been taught at home all their lives through School of the Air, and it was a great setup. We like the Aboriginal community because it reminds me of home. Similar, easy, laid-back way of life. As you can see, this is a palm leaf from a coconut, and back in the island, this is our livelihood. We do this every day. There you go.
I came over to Australia about 10 years ago. About 3 days into my tour of the outback, I went on a tour of Kakadu and wound up having this very interesting tour guide who has since become my husband.
We were running tours out into the national park. I got to this place one day and I went up to pick up this first Spanish passenger, and she was a white-haired lady, and before I had any conversation, she just picked up a bag and ran into the bus. Now I thought this is going to be interesting, and it was interesting too, because I got to know him quite well and eventually married her in the United States.
By the time we got married, he had moved to Katherine, actually to Manyalala, outside of Katherine, so I wound up packing up lock, stock and barrel from where I lived in the US and coming over and joining him. It turned out to be a tour that was a life-changing experience. It's brought me here, and I'm glad to be here.
I came down in 1973 to Katherine and worked on the railways here. I was always sports-minded, and later on I started taking cricket up. I carted bricks and tinder for the army, for the Air Force. I carted all the bricks out there, and I carted bricks around town. And I suppose I nearly carted all the bricks from Tyndall for stage 1, stage 2 and stage 3.
What I like about Katherine is it's a typical Australian big, broad, wide town. And it's a piece of Australia which a lot of people, I would say most Australians don't know. Neither did I before coming here, because I lived in Melbourne for most of my migrant life. Anyway, we came here 2 years ago to help our children establish a cafe, which is mainly concentrated on feeding Australian Indigenous people who come here from most remote corners of Northern Territory, even from Queensland. So when they come to town, they visit us. We're known for our simple on-the-bone, rib-bone food, but naturally we introduce slowly and hideously vegetables and fruit, some cakes, but very limited, and also juices which they lack.
Well, I came to Katherine 4 years ago because of my husband's work. He's an airmed pilot, and 2 years after we arrived in Katherine, we saw this shop up for sale. It was on the main road then, and it kind of took off. But I like a small town. I like Katherine. The main reason I like Katherine is I like walking down the street and recognising people. I like that. I like to know people where I go. I like to see them down at the shops, you know, the same people at the club. I do want to go back to a big city, but then again, I don't know. I like a small town. I like Katherine.
I was born in Katherine, in the old Katherine Hospital. I lived the first years of my life in Mataranka. Came to Katherine when there was a population of about 300. The time of the year that I like in Katherine, I suppose, is the winter time, because it is cool. But I like most of the weather except for the changeover when it goes from the winter to the summer. Katherine has grown a lot since the time I have been here, but for it to grow in the future, I think I would like to see it grow like Margaret River a bit. We have all the things here, we have the artists here, we have good water, we have horticulture here. There are timbers here that the people can use, and I don't see why we can't make cheese or make preserves just using tropical fruits. The artists to be encouraged. I know it took a long time, it took 25 years for Margaret River probably to go to where it is now, but we've got to start somewhere, and I think it's a good way for our future to go. Katherine Prize was started in 1976. It started actually in the showgrounds, and then it became an identity on its own, like it is now. It was joined with the Katherine Flying Fox Festival. I can't remember quite when. It was started to actually encourage artists, young artists that have not won any other prize, but to give them encouragement and to give them perhaps a little bit of pocket money to keep going with their work, so that they can buy paints and board or whatever it is they require to keep going. I started off as a painter, but I didn't really like that, so I graduated into sewing. I take a lot of my inspiration from around the country around us. I'm not really an abstract artist. I really like to paint what I see or try to interpret what I see around me, so therefore scenery or the feel of the land is very important to me. My own art, I suppose it's textile. That's the medium I like to work in. It's taken me a long time to actually find the medium. Stitching with a sewing machine, using the sewing machine as a brush, as a person would use a brush, that's what I really like to do. My life is not complicated here. It is easy. It is secure. It feels secure. It's been different, but I've had a free life too. I mean, you could go and spend the whole day down the river, and you could wander throughout the whole of Katherine. You had no restrictions on your freedom. You did what you pretty well liked, and you came home as long as you were home to have a bath and get ready to go to bed at night, and as long as you didn't get into too much mischief during the daytime, so your mother didn't have to go and apologise to everybody around town for what you did. Life was good, life was free, and my children, I wanted that for my kids, and my kids had it too. I mean, they spent times in which they would just disappear, and they'd go in down the river and just go and walk and play and fish and laze around and do nothing in general, but I suppose be their own little Huckleberry Finns. That's what Katherine meant to me.
The parable of the old bull and the young bull. Way upon a hillside, far out in Arnhem Land, two scrub bulls were walking, scouting out the land. One was old and wise, also fat and strong. The other was a yearling, allowed to tag along. They chanced upon this valley green. The young one gasped at what he'd seen, for there they were, all rolling fat, spread out for miles upon the flat. The heifers, cows and sprightly calves, waiting for their better halves. The young bull yelled, "I'm going mad! Let's race down and screw one dad." He thought his father must be queer, but father said, "Now look you here, I don't mean to put you off, my lad, but stop and listen to your dad. We'll step out slowly, take our time, you'll find that we'll be doing fine. Go slowly, boy, and don't get hot, and then, my son, we'll screw the lot."
1962 as a pastoral schoolie. I was out on Roper Valley Station for 12 months, and at the end of that time I married the head stockman from the same station. We didn't move into town until it was time to educate the children. We had tried a governess, it didn't work, so we moved into town permanently in 1971. And I've been here ever since. My husband died in 1978, and I reared the 3 children, the youngest of whom was only 9 when Ken died. When Ken died, he was building our own home over the other side of town, and we bought a block, and he started to build a double brick home for us. And he said at the time, well, I've got 3 daughters, so they have to have a bedroom each eventually, so it became a 4-bedroom double brick home. He died when he was 2 bricks up over the top of the windows. The townspeople got together. We had, I don't know how many ring-arounds, I suppose you'd call them, collecting money for me and the girls, and we ended up with $4,000, which put the roof on the house. I spent the next 3 months in tears of absolute gratitude because everybody was just so wonderful. My dad had a heart attack 6 weeks after Ken died. He was still here. They were on holidays after the funeral. And people couldn't have been kinder. It was really wonderful. And I think that epitomises what the people were like at that time. I don't think town has changed all that much. We still have the friendships. People are still very friendly. We look after one another, especially at the flood time. That's when the friendship came out in the community, because people just hopped in and helped where they could. And I think the town is still epitomising that. Because I have bad arthritis, I don't like the cold. In the middle of the dry, once the cold comes, I'm looking for a cardigan as soon as it hits 25. Anything above that and I'm fine. So, you know, but the cold really upsets the bones and the joints. So, you know, and I think you'll find most older people will say the same thing. But we still stay here because it's our home. Yeah. I cannot imagine living anywhere else than Katherine, because I'm part of the town and it is my home.
I come here in '57 from Queensland, and I work here in the works department a little while, and after working 50 Mile Farm, and after 50 Mile Farm, when the Katherine start come up, and I go back into my job, bricklayer and concrete and things like that. So I've been working for the Randazzo builder, and Jerusi Moretti, and he was more half the time. Gino Chili, Peter. It was few at the time, yeah. At that time was good. When they start get up commission house, few builders come from Darwin, and then we work under contract. Do all the bricks and concrete and tiling and plaster and everything. That time, see. When I come here, Katherine only was maybe 400 people. It was nothing. Main Street was nothing. Only was post office and the club, pubs, not clubs, the pubs, 2 pubs, 2 shops, and what, news agency, the paper, move pictures. That's all it was. Not much that time. That's why he got all in the Main Street. And now he got full. I was like it. It was good little town. It's very good, still good now. I still like it. You know, no matter what happened, but the time it was more easy. Not many people, everybody worked, no trouble in town. It was good. Still all right now too, but you know, it will change. I met Val in the play in the boys in a small town called Tugulua in the Brisbane Valley. And that one there, and then play in the ball there, and then that one I met Val, and then come through this way, and that one now I can introduce that Val here, that after we married here. And so, now you can take over if you want.
We used to play indoor bowls over there, and he talked me into coming up here in '87, and we stayed then until '95. We were married in 1988 here in Katherine, and we've lived here on and off until now, apart from 3 years when we went back to Queensland. But we love it here in Katherine, and a great place to live.
Tell me about history. History, Bruce Station to here, Turkmengan. One time we used to call it Jambre. When we was first moving, you know, we had that caravan, Silver Bullet, 2 Silver Bullet, and held the station. But that not, you know, didn't go enough. We've been going to stay much there now. We've been ready to move. When that station, you know, stopped, that's been Westmacott time. Westmacott time we went to Marinka for the rodeo, and after that he came Monday, and Tuesday everybody finished, and he was talking to my sister Jessie Roberts, and also he was come see me. He's come see me and talk, you know, talk. And I called my old man, Jimmy Conway, my husband, you know. And we talk together how we gonna move. When to Barunga or not Barunga. Now we're gonna go right back to home. We can sit somewhere else in a riverbank, you know, settle down. And also, we rang to DA office, DAA. My brother is working there, and we called him up. And Kegulin came with him in that corner on that upstairs, standing for Robert's mother. It's there. And we will see that time nearly rain. And my brother told, we had meeting there in that corner. And my brother said to people in our family not to sitting around and sleep and go riverbank fishing. He was talking, you're going to stand up and running because the time nearly rain. Because time nearly rain coming. And yeah, everybody will carry on.
Ever since my family moved to Katherine, kilometre or two out of Katherine, my father's always said that Katherine is the river. The river makes Katherine. And he said that all the way through until his last days. Then later on, with not having any doctors here of any assistance, well,